Welcome to the Mary Mac Show, where we will be talking about your feelings, experiences, and pain following the death of a loved one. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you find yourself in this entire world, I welcome you. How are you doing, my friend? I hope this day finds you well and safe. At this time each year, in many parts of the world, we celebrate Father's Day. For most, this is a joyful day when we get to visit our fathers to recognize all they have done for us as we have grown up, as well as during our adult years. We acknowledge all the sacrifices they've made to make sure we had what we needed. Today's a day to gather together and just spend time with our family. If our dad is older now, we may be visiting him in a nursing facility. If we were fortunate, he taught us how to throw a baseball, ride a bike, go to games with us, camp together. He shared wisdom and life lessons. Yet no doubt, there are those of us who didn't have that wonderful relationship with our dads, and it's hard to get all warm and fuzzy thinking of him on this day. Yet when our fathers have already left this earth, it can be a melancholy day. There is a sense of sadness and loneliness for a man we can no longer hug, speak with, confide in. No one whom we can appreciate on this day. And if that relationship was strained, or perhaps you didn't even know him, this day can be especially difficult. Some will commemorate their first Father's Day without their dad. Perhaps your father has died, and you were raised and loved by another male figure, like a stepfather, an uncle, a grandfather, or even a godfather. These men might have left a considerable mark on your life. They were there to talk to and guide you when things weren't going as expected, when you might have been sad and lonely. They listened and gave their advice when you weren't quite sure what road was the better one to go down. I'm sure you have had special times that you remember about your dad and father figures who taught you so much and were there for you during good times and bad. We all need father figures in our life, whether we have experienced our dad's death or not. Today, on Father's Day, those memories will surface. You might remember past Father's Days and the activities you experienced, maybe with other members of your family. Maybe you all gathered together at a relative's home and enjoyed a delicious meal, or even went fishing or to a ball game or another special time together where you laughed and just had a great time together. If you've experienced your father's death, especially if yours was a wonderfully close relationship, then this day can bring you enormous pain. You missed his physical presence, the way he spoke to you, the way he hugged you, the sacrifices he made for your benefit, how he made you feel so special, went out of his way to listen, the trips you and your family took together, and all the caring things he did with you as you were growing up. As a girl, you might have had tea with him when you were quite young, and went to father-daughter dances and other wonderful events in high school and college. He might have danced with you at your wedding, and you miss him terribly. Whether your father had died recently or many years ago, Father's Day can be a difficult day because you recall all that he meant to you and what life would be like now had he not been taken when he was. If he died when you were an infant, child, teen, or young adult, you feel cheated of all the years you could have had with him. When your dad dies young, you were too young to remember him, and you perhaps rely on your mother and other relatives to refresh your memories and take out old photos of him. If he died when you were old enough to remember, yours is a difficult hurt, watching your friends and even cousins being raised and loved by their fathers, but you don't have that luxury. You know how unfair this is. Yet you wonder what it would be like if you were in their shoes and had the man who would support and teach you as you started to come into your own. If he died when you were just becoming independent, you also wonder what it would have been like to include him in your college years, packing your things, stuffing the car or truck, and driving up to college with him. And of course, missing him when you graduated from each school, grade school, high school, even college. He was not in that seat, perhaps next to your mother, and how you wished he was. He would have helped you set up your first apartment, cheer you on as you looked for jobs, and encouraged you as you started your career. He might not have been there when you got married, had your first child and subsequent children, and watched with excitement because he became a grandfather for the first time and enjoyed birthdays and special holidays together. If he died when he was in midlife, you never thought he would have been taken so soon. He had so much life to live, and never did you think you wouldn't have the ability to see him grow old. And then, if he did get to grow old and the roles started to reverse, now you were the one taking care of him. And he needed you toward the end of his life, and you did your best to ensure he had what he needed. Yet for some, there were a whole host of other men who took the role of dad for you. They may not have been your biological father, but all along the way, they stepped up into the role because you needed them. Most sacrificed a lot to take care of you, nurtured you, and made sure you were safe and raised well. And today, you're grieving for the stepfather who raised you, the grandfather, uncle, godfather, or other male relative you considered your dad. Perhaps it was an adoptive father and mother who wanted so much to love a child that they couldn't have, and one day you were placed in your adoptive mother's arms, and he felt so blessed to have you to raise and love. Perhaps it was a foster father who wanted so much to give a child a good home, which you longed for. You might have been floating from home to home, and finally you found him and your foster mother, the one who was stable and loving and wanted to make sure you were well taken care of. They might have even been able to adopt you. He was the strong male figure you dreamed of, and you will forever be grateful for what he did for you. He made the greatest impact on your life, and you miss him terribly. There are also older brothers who stepped in to care for younger siblings when their parents died young. They kept the family going. Sometimes their role goes unnoticed, but they took on a job they were never meant to do. And he sacrificed an awful lot of his life and happiness for you. The relationships he never had, the parties he didn't attend, the meals he had to cook, the grocery shopping, the cleaning of the home and laundry, the college classes he may have had to forego to make sure you had what you needed. He was a surrogate father to you, maybe even a mother too. So much of his own desires weren't experienced. But there is a long list of other situations surrounding Father's Day and grief that many have experienced, yet we often don't acknowledge, and I want to do so now. There are many fathers who will not have the pleasure of their children's company this year because they have predeceased them. No father ever believes that he will live longer than his children. If you've experienced the death of child or children, maybe even all your children, you might feel like you cannot call yourself a father any longer. And I'm here to tell you that that is certainly not the case. You are still a dad, only now your child or children are with you in spirit, and they will always be there with you. Your relationship with your children was cut short, and the pain is severe. Whether family or friends acknowledge this day or not, I want to acknowledge it. Happy Father's Day to you. We remember them today with you in spirit. Sometimes, for men, it's not an actual loss of a father that is difficult to grieve. It can also be what hasn't occurred that can affect you on a day like today. Men who are grieving the children that they never had, they waited too long, they decided their career was more important, and now they regret it. Or simply didn't find the right woman or partner to build a family with, and now they are in their 40s or older, and they feel they don't want to bring a child into the world so late in life. These are incredible men who all their lives believed at some point they'd become dads, and now in their latter years still wonder what it would have been like had their lives' circumstances been different, had life taken a different turn, and they would have been called daddy. And what about the dads who said yes to put their child up for adoption when they were quite young? They may still be grieving for that child and wondering where they might be. Could they be passing them in the street? Do they think about them, especially on Father's Day? Do they hope they are safe and well? For my adoptive fathers, I want to tell you that you are truly special. I realize this day may bring painful memories and guilt of what you couldn't give your child at the time. But do you realize how selfless it is to make sure your little one was cared for properly? I can't think of a more important decision. You should feel a sense of peace that you did the right thing, when perhaps the right thing wasn't happening in your own life back then. You put your feelings and concerns aside to ensure your little one would have a better life. Feel peace in your soul for that on this day. He or she will always be your child. You just decided another family would raise them for you. And for men who are grieving the children that they almost had, men who endured with their wives the miscarriage or stillbirth of a child. Perhaps their wives are still struggling to bear children, but can't keep a pregnancy. If you've experienced miscarriage or stillbirth in your family, I am here to validate your loss. They will always be your child, always. And for those who are working on becoming pregnant, reach out to friends who have young ones and get involved with their lives. Being around little ones will help raise you up from the feelings of despair. And although it may seem difficult in the beginning, it can be a great blessing. Envision how it will look when you're bringing up your little one, when you're bringing them to the playground and changing their diapers and watching them laugh as you talk baby talk to them. There are men who strive to have their wives become pregnant, and they haven't achieved that goal yet. Their wives have never had the honor to even become pregnant for a whole host of reasons. Women and men who are grieving the children they couldn't have did everything they could to get pregnant, and yet it still hasn't happened. For all the men and women who are not blessed with little ones, we are a rather large bunch, it seems. We are the ones who dote on the nieces and nephews and other children. We have fun texting messages, emailing, calling, sending photos, and laughing over funny jokes. Sure, it took us years to settle within ourselves that the dream would probably never come true. We struggled with it for a long time, and eventually we figured out another way to celebrate all the passions we had. We volunteer for children's causes. We raise money for them. We become mentors for young men and women, and we make sure we're busy making others' lives better. And then we must acknowledge the fathers who raised their own children and were the mothers as well as fathers to them. We celebrate them for taking on this incredible challenge, and maybe they haven't been properly acknowledged for the years of work, effort, and missed quiet time they might have had if their wives and children's wonderful mothers had not died so soon. But unfortunately, there were mothers who were neglectful and irresponsible and wouldn't or couldn't raise their own children for a whole host of reasons, including addiction, mental illness, abandonment, or others. All these folks feel a melancholy Father's Day. So what can we do to get through this Father's Day? If our father has died, we can always find another older gentleman who has no one and adopt him as our own. Bring him to movies, take him for walks, perhaps share a meal together at home or at a restaurant. Get him out of the house. Laugh with him. He might be as close as your neighbor up the block or down the hall. It's a difficult life when you're all alone. Perhaps you can donate some time or money to children's charity to honor your dad. As you know, my favorite charity is the Foundation for Grieving Children, Inc., which I began many years ago for young people who have experienced the death of a loved one. Make the donation in honor of your dad. See if you can volunteer to mentor a boys' club or girls' club in your area where a fatherless young boy or girl could use your love and attention. You just happen to know exactly how that feels. Visit a place that has fond memories for you. If your dad would bring you to a ball game, perhaps you'll share that with a young nephew and rekindle the warm memories you shared with them. Another idea is to enjoy a particular food he loved. Was there a certain restaurant you frequented together? A favorite wine or beer? Raise your glass to him. Maybe you'll decide to call some of your father figures in your life or even visit them. Reminisce about past memories and thank them for the impact they had on your life. You might decide to spend time with the women and men in your life who aren't parents or struggling to become parents. Theirs is a very private grief that few want to hear about. Be that shoulder for them. Right there in the back of their minds floats the thought that they may never have the good fortune of being called mom or dad. Reach out to another young father with wisdom only you can give him. Especially if his father has also died, He will be fortunate for your fatherly counsel. You might also go to the cemetery to visit, or to a place that brought your dad joy, like the lake, beach, or another place which brings back good memories. Maybe even plant a flowering bush or tree in your backyard in his memory. However you decide to remember and celebrate your dad or the other men who graciously served as your father, be grateful for their love and all they did for you. For fathers who are grieving the children that once graced their lives for just a few moments, a few months, or a few years. That time was precious and a special gift, and we celebrate their part in your life's journey. For those who are still believing for their little one, I'm believing with you. And for those men who have passed their time to become a dad, I empathize with you. I too will forever have that hurt of not having my own. I've chosen to concentrate my time and give my love to those who appreciate it. Whatever your circumstances, know that fatherhood comes in so many forms. We don't need a label to make a younger person or other father figure feel cherished. So now it's time to get up, move our bodies, and dance. If you're in the car, wiggle in your seat and move your shoulders and hips. And even if you think this is a little strange, don't think about it. Just do it anyway, okay? Thank you for listening in today. Remember to write 5 things in your journal each evening that you are grateful for. Visit my website, marymac.info, for your free book. And please rate and review my podcast wherever you listen to me. And as always, remember to be happy because you deserve to. I'll speak to you again soon.